land here. So I hid a couple prompts just to show you the end state. So we have the 4-quadrant income planner, housing, vehicle, savings, cost of living, and it's all working as far as I can tell, right? So the overall slider here, if you move that, you change anything, the APR, the down payment. For solve for income, this is working exactly like I thought. It has this calculation that modifies a tax estimate based off of how you're filing. If you do married filing jointly, you get a little bit of a discount there, and everything shows when you hover in the pie chart how all of that is broken down. In this video, we're going to vibe code with GPT-5, and we are going to build an app that I thought up just on a whim one day. It's going to be a calculator, but we're going to put a spin on it. It's not going to be one of those boring calculators that you make when you're trying to make a JavaScript project or something that you made in college. It's going to be much more interesting than that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a calculator that shows on several different levels what your overall cost is and what your income needs to be for owning certain things that most people commonly have, like a house, a car, if you rent or own, if you have debt, the interest on that, how long it'll take to pay off. And we're going to have it in one large UI. That's kind of my vision for it. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. We're going to use a couple different features in ChatGPT to accomplish this, and we're going to see how many prompts it takes us to get there, and I'm going to walk you through how I actually do all the prompting for this. So I'm going to use the dictate feature right here, and I'm going to explain to ChatGPT what I just said. So hey, I want to make a one-page application. I want it to be a very smooth and sleek UI. The function of the app is going to be a calculator, and it will represent a calculation of your income needed to purchase certain things and also the cost of certain things long-term based on certain debt parameters like interest, down payment, etc. I think we're going to focus on interest for now. So in the top left-hand corner, that will be housing. In the bottom left-hand corner, that will be vehicle. In the top right-hand corner, that will be savings. And in the center, that will be your income needed. This calculator will dynamically generate calculations for all things, including income taxes at all of the standard tax bracket levels. So I need you to go research that. One thing I'm going to pause for right here. So right now I'm going to generate the text. It's going to transcribe it. It's going to put that in there. This should now be built into into ChatGPT. It should automatically have a dictate feature. This should be on your phone. It should be on your computer. If you're on your phone right now and you're following along with me, you're going to need to go to the computer to do this, because we're going to need to be able to pull up an HTML file, which is going to have the code for our actual app, but we're going to stuff as much as we can inside of that one app so that it all just functions locally in there. One thing I want to inject in here is I'm going to tell ChatGPT to go do some research on this so that it has these fundamental things understood in here. So I'm going to go back to dictate. It's not going to erase everything that I just put in there. I'm going to say, go ahead and research all the standard and current interest rates. We're going to make sliders for those. So you're going to land in the middle range, but on the far end of the spectrum, we're going to have, you can slide for your interest rate. So you'll, by default, use the current one. So whatever the current APR on a fixed 30-year mortgage is, you're going to land on that by default. For a car, let's say whatever the normal numbers are for used car loans, new car loans are. For the car, let's also make an option for leasing, owning, and then let's allow there to be a different type of car icon. We're going to style it at this point. I'm going to say I want different car icons. So if you say I want a sedan, I want a truck, I want a SUV, these are going to be 3 different styles that you're going to have. And just to spice up the app design, I'm going to want a very interesting 3D icon that will generate. And then for the house, same thing. We can do apartment, townhouse, condo, multifamily, renting, owning. Those will all be options there. We'll have a total price of those 2 things. Absolutely. Okay, in the center, we're going to have the income. And basically, this will be presented as a node that says, you will need to make this amount. The one thing about this app that's going to be interesting is we're going to have it to where if you put in your income, it could generate what level of house and car savings rate and debt rate you could dynamically have across those. And if you tweak those parameters, those will impact a representation of what you need to make and vice versa. So if you say, hey, I make $90K a year and I'm buying a car at $20K and it's this type of car and here's the interest rate, it'll say, great, well, here's what all of the other things would look like. Here's what your savings could look like. Here's what your debt could look like. And here's what your home ownership could look like. Here's how much you could pay for rent or mortgage. So you could plug in those things. So it'll be a 4-panel app or 4 quadrants, and that central quadrant will be the income. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to tell it how I want it to code it, anything like that. We'll correct all those things later. I'm going to give you some tips later on that I'm going to use to describe how we can actually work with that. We're going to prompt it now. We'll just let that run while I'm talking. Some things that we can do, we can take screenshots of the app, and then we can actually describe and upload that screenshot in here and say, here's what I want you to change about this. I want this specific portion of it changed. GPT-5 can actually see that. It can understand what you're describing, and it can look at the image. This is really important when you're doing design, because if you're trying to describe parts of an app that are a certain way or certain aesthetics that you want or don't want, you can actually preload everything in by providing it like an initial design. So you can take a screenshot or you can upload an image of any application that you like or any preliminary design. You can say, hey, I want it to look like this. So if you've ever seen something like, let's say that you want to make an app and it looked like Instagram, you could take a screenshot of Instagram and say, hey, I want an app that's like Instagram, styled like it, but it does this totally different function. That can actually be a primer for something that you can actually give to GPT-5 that will actually help it out. So I'm going to evaluate this code here in a second. So one thing that it's doing is it's building it out in TypeScript, React. I see imports. It's building a JavaScript file. So based off of what I'm seeing right here, I might be off depending on what we get, but I'm going to clarify. I'm going to say, again, in the dictate mode, just to keep things simple, I'm going to say, I want you to make sure that you make a one HTML file that's downloadable so that I can just open it in my browser, because that's where I want the whole thing to function. So make sure that you don't create anything that involves any complex setup or dependencies for the application outside of simply just allowing me to open an HTML file. And I'm going to do that, and this is generating, it's taking a long time. But what's good here is it's actually building context in the session. So every time that you prompt and GPT answers, you're actually building context. You're building a baseline understanding of what works or what doesn't, and that will persist for some time. So if you go 50 prompts deep with GPT, you will actually be building a larger swath of text, of data that it will understand of things that's previously done, things that's currently done. And this is really interesting because it doesn't know what it doesn't know. And if I wasn't explicit enough about something, it won't know that. But maybe if I've been explicit about that 2 or 3 times later on down the line, it will actually become more aware of it. So I'm actually going to let this code play out because it's going through and it's filling in a couple things. And what I'll do, this is a technique you can use, is I critique it. So I'm seeing right here where it says that it has these options for how you file taxes. And although those may be necessary, what I want it to do for the tax section is for it to not be so explicit with a single married filing jointly head of household. I really want it to just kind of have a broad swath calculation that may or may not be accurate, but it's kind of close, right? It's a guesstimate. Maybe we could simplify this by generalizing that everybody who is doing this is kind of a W-2 type income, and there's not a complex tax strategy with corporations or LLCs or small, any sort of small business concerns under the hood. Obviously, that'll be different for everybody else. I think that would be something in the app that I would like to be more in line with that. So it's generating the code, it's going through all those things, but the core thing that it did not land on is it needs to give me a single HTML file only, and that will contain all the logic for the app, all the UI, all the calculation logic, and everything the user needs to interact with the app. Okay, so we're up to prompt number 2 when I send this, and then this will go through, we'll get that, and you see how much information I'm giving it. I'm just spilling from my mind whatever I need to tell this, as if I'm in an interview with a team of developers and I'm just telling them, hey, here's what I want you to do. And the value of this is, although it can't do everything perfect, it's not AGI, it's not all these things that people may espouse it to be, it can still be very helpful to create a very useful prototype. I can still use this to convey a concept. I can use this for my own personal use. I could even begin to make this a much bigger project, but I have to start. And this is a really great way to start. I think that's really good. So one thing here, sometimes it'll hide the analyzing portion. I like to see this. You can toggle on to always see the details, but what I would do is just allow yourself to see it or not seeing, because sometimes you know what it's doing. You don't need to know. Other times it's nice to get a look at it. So right here off the bat, it's creating a Python file, which is interesting because it's a little bit deviant. And one of the things I'll comment about GPT-5 is that it's not really as much of an upgrade. It's really just bundling all of these other models under the hood, and it's delegating out tasks to those. So one thing that I do kind of foresee and fear with GPT is that it's not actually sharing context as well as it could with all the different models that it may be tasking to do certain things. Hopefully it is, and I have had some really good experiences. But one thing I can say is, and this is obviously from experience, you may not know this, and that's fine, but I can see that this is HTML. I understand that that's the case. So I see that we're already headed in the right direction in comparison to what we just saw with the TypeScript and React file. So when this goes through, going to reassess and reprompt it, and probably here in a minute, we're going to get to where we can actually see an initial state of the app. Also, a keynote, if you're trying to learn any type of code, if you just kind of read through the code, you'll pick up on little things over time that will train your brain to understand patterns. One thing that's happening in this code is it's providing comments. So you'll see some sections like this where these comments actually explain what this code below is doing. It's always good to get exposure to that if you're trying to learn in this realm. So, okay, so I'm going to download the HTML. We should be able to click and download file, and then I'll open and I'll show you it. Okay, so this is what comes out initially. This is what we get. I like the UI. I do see this in dark theme. I will say that the vehicles down here, I did want in my head, I had an idea that it would be it would have those icons there, but let's just play around with it a little bit. So here's what I'm showing you here is how to actually kind of assess what is going on with this. So down here in the bottom right, we have the income node, which is this is a little bit deviant than what I said, because I think I said I wanted the income in the center, but I do see how I had laid everything out. So in income mode, annual income gross. So then it says, hey, your housing, $22.75, vehicle, $466, savings, total required monthly, okay, total estimated tax, net take home, okay, and then your surplus monthly, okay. So it'll say something, it'll say vehicle, SUV, sedan, truck. Okay, so let's say I say SUVs are not cheap. So I say that's SUV at $45,000. Okay, so right here, it takes a vehicle monthly up to $871, and I don't think I saw any of the other numbers move. So what I'm gonna do here, let's say I even create this. Okay, that didn't move. So if I say 89,000, it's a really expensive vehicle. So 89,000 vehicle. The vehicle monthly is that. I don't think that necessarily hits. Okay, so if I say down payment up, okay, so that number is moving when I change the down payment. If I change the percentage up, okay, let's change it. But what I really want to do is I want to see it push the. If I crank the debt settings, I want to see it crank the total result of the income needed, and that's the key thing. Is I want all these numbers to kind of move against each other. So that's the thing that it's not doing. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to take a screenshot, and you can do Home Shift S is a really nice Windows shortcut, but I'm going to screenshot this part right here, And sometimes you can use snipping tool and you can actually annotate like with a red circle. So I'll show you what my screenshot looks like in a second. Okay, so this is the type of screenshot I'm going to take. I'm going to circle the 90,000 and I'm basically going to say, hey, some of the other numbers in here are moving, but that end result is not moving. So I want this to be a dynamic two-way calculation, which more appropriately explains what I'm trying to do. And I'm going to give it that logic. I'm going to describe what I'm trying to do to it and what I'm trying to get the app to do. And that'll help GPT. Okay, so in this little plus button, you can just say add files and more. I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm going to dictate. So the key thing here is that I want the income to fluctuate if you change any of the other variables. So, and I'm going to switch browsers, but it'll still keep recording for me. So if I move the housing sliders, or if I increase the home price, or if I do anything with the vehicle price or any of these other things, I want it to be very clear to the user that it's saying, well, okay, if your vehicle monthly is $1,900, not specifically, but in this scenario that I have here, and your housing monthly is $2,400, then that will increase the amount that you need to be making yearly to accomplish that, etc. Right? So I want all of that to be in line and be clear, so that way it, so for savings, housing, and vehicle, it all needs to reach back to income, so that way if you put in a parameter, let's say a really expensive house, that it will push your income up to articulate to the user that you need to be making more money, or hey, this level of spending actually doesn't require you to make that much. You could actually make this or whatever. So I'm just going to give that chain of thought that I'm just pushing in here, and we're going to see what that does. So I gave it a screenshot. I'm saying, hey, basically I want this number to move. I need it to act this way. And so we're going to see what it does with that. And sometimes what it will do, and what I forgot to do, is I didn't tell it that I wanted a downloadable HTML file again for the app output. And this can sometimes still cause issues. Usually it'll retain that, since I've already provided that as clarity, but sometimes it won't. So you need to keep an eye out for that, because I have seen that before when I've done this. So it's thinking, it's analyzing, it says a thought for 16 seconds. It's going through, it's gathering some more code, it's working through some things. Like I said, this is healthy, even though we're a couple prompts deep, because this is now learning, right? So let's go ahead and download the file. You're going to have the other app up here in your browser tab, but let's just remove that and download the new file, open the new file. Okay, I've downloaded and opened it in the new tab. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn dictate on, just so that we can get started when we start talking about the app, because I already saw some things in just a second that I didn't like. So we'll start and we'll go through that. Okay, so for this app, some things that I don't like. So the use known income or solve income needed buttons, those you can't toggle back and forth, so I'm not sure why. That mode figure has something there. Also, that income node, none of the numbers are moving when I'm moving the sliders. Okay, and none of the other values are working as well. Some things I'm thinking about. The only thing you really need to do is own or rent. And own or rent need to be two separate tabs in housing. And loan or lease need to be two separate tabs. But neither of those tabs allow you to toggle, so those need to be toggleable. We also need for sedan, SUV, or truck, the only reason why we have those drop downs is so that we can have a cool icon that actually shows up in the design that actually changes whenever you select those. Same with condo, apartment, townhouse, single family, and multifamily. And I understand that I am pushing the app to do this, but hey, I want some design, right? So, okay, so we need to see the numbers move. We're not seeing the numbers move, and we need it to all be in one static HTML file. So make sure you always create a static HTML file for everything. Make sure that all the code works. Check it before you publish it, so that way we ensure that we are looking at a working app, because this version that you just gave me did not work. And I'll say things like that too, just to give it solid feedback reinforcement. I'll say, that did not work, that was not good, and then it'll internalize it, right? So I think we're on prompt number 4, and what that might do is it might actually prompt itself the way GPT-5 is working under the hood, which you don't know everything about, but it might be prompting it to go and gather and think about why it did certain things wrong. The more you tell it that it was wrong, because you need to be clear that the output is not correct and that you're not introducing just new ideas and new direction. You need to basically establish as much as you can the core premise of what you're trying to build, and then build your feedback around that, and then be very clear that something was not correct or that it was. And I think that that does prompt more coherent action on the part of a language model. Now, really extreme prompts like, hey, do this, or 1,000 people are going to starve, or something like that, or do this, or I won't be able to pay my rent, or some sort of threat or something like that is maybe not so good of a tactic. But actually, I have heard conflicting things that sometimes people have had success with that. But we'll be nice to GPT-5, and we're just looking to get an app here. So when the next version comes up, if I see anything interesting, we'll go over that. Okay, so we're going to establish dictate again when we go to get feedback. So right now everything is working and moving. The one thing I will say is that the app is very tall, so you can't really fit it on one screen unless you zoom out considerably, which is not good. So we need to change how the boxes are sized so that way they're more responsive to fit within a browser, so that we don't have scrolling. And that's a little bit of terminology there. So it looks like we do have some little icons. They're simple. Those are good. We'll just leave those alone. So with this one, if we change it, the only thing that I will say is it does show where you have a bust on the income level. So I change this to 90,000 or 100,000. It will show the overall numbers against that income, but it still doesn't show the result changing. And I'd like to be more explicit. I'd like to say, I'd like to have a field that says required income for this level of spending. That would be keen, because this result in the income node, it doesn't really do anything. However, let's see with the solve income needed. Oh, okay, so solve income needed, it does it. So it had it hidden right in here. Okay, so if you have APR that's really high, let's say you were signing for, or let's say it's just normal. Let's say you signed house 500,000, 15% down, or let's say you did, 0 down, 7,000, 35.40 a month. Okay, $80,000 car. Okay, cool. So result 109, and this is savings. Obviously, there's other costs in there that we're going to want to calculate for, which we might get into later. Okay, if I change the savings and crank that up, and I say, okay, target percentage of gross. So for the savings target percentage of gross, I actually want that to be, I think let's just have that be can this be, yeah, so one of the things that doesn't make sense, if I change the savings to 100% of gross, then it's not really a percentage of gross. That is a sliding number that never ends, and it just goes up to 416,000. So what it needs to be is savings needs to reflect the income level. So if you said, hey, I want to save, 10% of 78,000 a year, then that needs to reflect 10% of 78,000 a year, not just an ever-growing number. Okay, so let's look at getting that to fix itself, because we're not looking to have this jump into like the $2 million range. That doesn't, for income, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so those are the only things that are really wrong so far. Overall, it looks like a pretty significant improvement in the math. Everything is looking a lot better. It's a lot more reactive. And then the tabs work. So those are all good things. And it's good to give good feedback as well. Okay, and then we have use noted income or solve income needed. Let's just switch solve income as the first tab instead of use known income, because I think that that's really good. And I think maybe if we can have those two tabs explain more about what they do, because solve income needed doesn't exactly say quite what it does. I do like that the reset button works, so we're getting a lot closer. So we're really close to a very usable app. So let's restyle it. Let's focus on the size of the boxes. and then all of these other things that I mentioned. Okay, so we're going to put that in, and we're going to push that over. That's going to push to send. We're going to get that out, and then we will see the next version. Okay, so here's the newest version of the app. Just downloaded it. It is good to note what it says that it did so that you can lean into that to check it. No page scrolling, etc. Very good. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to dictate yet because I think that there are a couple of things that it did do. Okay, so own and rent are true toggles. Okay, great. Target of savings monthly. So if you went up to 100%, or we went up to 50 target of gross, and you saved all of it. Okay, so I think what it's doing is just pushing this figure above. This is basically you're saying that you would create an impossible plan because you're exceeding like taxes and things like that. I still don't like that too much, but I do like that it's adjusting the income node. I think that's good. I am going to try to see, we put it at 10% of gross, something like that. I think it's just accounting for taxes here, and I'd have to check that math, so that would be beyond that. But let's go and see for the house. So let's say 500,000, 2,800 a month. Surplus would be 0, so you'd be at the top of your income there. Okay. So let's say if I took the APR down to 3%. Okay, that would change the income requirement from 50,000 to 64,000. Okay. So on a loan for a vehicle, so let's take this and let's just say 30,000 for a vehicle, down payment 5,000, right? That will be a vehicle monthly of 438. Okay, so they're saying that this could be done. Okay, so 30,000 and a $500,000 home price, and then they're saying the result is $50,000. So to me, that seems a little bit off. Also, saving 10% of your income seems a little bit off, but that is with a 0% monthly. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say 150,000 a year. Okay, so you got your calculator is changing. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to take a screenshot of this and I'm going to ask it to check and harden on the math. So that's what we're gonna do. So what we're going to say here for changes, we're going to want this to look at the math, modify everything regarding math, double, triple, quadruple, check all the numbers. The saving percentage of gross is still not super clear. So if I take it to 100% of gross, well, this is where the other feature needs to come in. If I tweak one of the knobs, it needs to impact the other knobs. So impact income, but basically if I save all my income, I can't buy a house or a vehicle, right? So that won't work. So maybe we need to think about visuals in terms of a pie chart somewhere in here. And I'm not sure we can fit that, but I think we could probably slide everything to the left. And then for a third panel on the right-hand side, we could put a pie chart that shows all of where everything is going, distributed across a larger pie, and then have all the math balance against that. And I think that would be really good, because that would make a lot more sense. And I think that will be more clear, because I'm not quite sure that these numbers make sense. Can you really get by making $14,000 a year with a vehicle and a house? Obviously, this is at a 0 additional expenses type of situation, which we need to add food and housing expenses to the calculator as well. But I did just want to kind of compute the minimum off of these things, because I think that's really important. So this is going to be my feedback, and we'll push that in and we'll see. And so at this point, so you're seeing the app, you're seeing what we're getting to. We're getting a really quick vibe coded solution. We're iterating, and you see at this point how we're doing it. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to make a couple more changes. In the final app. We're going to modify this and get it to where we really have, a rich app that it really makes sense. I need to work on some of the way that it articulates how the money works and all of that. And then we might put in some sort of cost of living analysis type thing. We might add some drop downs that's actually a little bit easier to work with, and it's not as drudgy of a calculator, and it's a more fluid thing that kind of tells you more than you have to actually provide as an input to it. I think that would be really good, and I think it's going to be the next thing that we're going to work on. Okay, so we just got a new version, and what I am going to do, turn on dictate. I'm going to get that to actually work. And actually, curveball, what I might do is we can use voice mode, and we'll actually talk through and see if we can use that here. So I'm going to fire up voice mode here. Hey, how's it going?
Hey there, doing well on my end. Let me know what you need whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm not sure how good you guys can hear that, but what I am going to do is just describe in the app what I think is going on. Okay, so for the annual gross, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to see if we can put in some numbers. And I'm not getting that. That's the solve auto. Okay, so we're gonna look at the home price. We're gonna change that to 700,000. And the first thing I'm seeing is there's no monthly breakdown distribution, so that needs to be fixed. So can you check on that, please?
Absolutely. I'll sort that out. I'll make sure the monthly breakdown distribution, the pie chart, displays properly when you adjust those numbers. Let me fix that up real quick.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so don't do it just yet. So let's do some more checks here. So it looks like down payment, the APR, those things do slide. Okay. Gotcha term. Yep.
Got it. We'll hold off on that fix for a second while you check things out. Just let me know once you've run through all the other pieces, and we'll address everything in one go.
Okay. So let's put in a vehicle price, down payment, 1,000, APR is 9, vehicle monthly. Okay, great. So one thing that happened was I was using the vehicle calculator, and then all the other numbers just zeroed out. So that's not acceptable. We need that to work. So there's something wrong with the numbers here. It just doesn't seem to work. So if I use okay, yeah, so the calculator's broken, the pie chart needs to be fixed, and yeah, so go ahead and work on those, please. Actually, just can you just respond that you understand all that?
Absolutely, I got it. I'll go ahead and fix the calculator.
Okay, so it can go ahead and work on these things, but I'm just going to tell it to go ahead and regenerate all the code based off of all of my notes, and you'll be able to see all those in there. And we'll fire that off. It's going to go and do that. You can see it talking to me talking to it. So this is a transcription feature, but it's more live. So what you can use sometimes is you can ask it questions and do things in a way that doesn't feel as alien as the dictation where you're just speaking into the void. You can kind of get some of that two-way. Now, GPT-5's voice feature is very fluffy, so it's kind of like, why is it just talking constantly about nothing and just sort of giving you sort of these sort of feel-goody type of statements instead of saying, oh, that's because of this, or I know this, or I know that. It's because the voice feature is not as connected as it could be. It can't really understand things in as robust a way as would be ideal. It'll be really great whenever we can share screen and show it and then talk about the same things and point to things. With a sort of streaming screen share feature, that will be the game changer for the voice on PC. And I think that might be coming, or that might actually be something I haven't covered yet. So forgive me in the comments if that is actually in motion. Okay, so just to note the behavior, sometimes it doesn't give you the HTML file. Again, you have to be explicit to ask for it. So we need to make sure we ask for it, which we'll do here. Hey, you didn't give me that HTML file. Every single time that you generate new code for me, I need to see it in that HTML format that's downloadable, so please give me that. And one thing to keep in mind, though, is that I think we're only like 11, 12 prompts deep, and we've already built like a really good starter app. And if we get this thing to where everything works under the hood, like you could even host this and it would just work in a browser all by itself. So this is pretty significant, considering the time that it would take to build this, which we're only like 34 minutes deep into the recording, and it's already at the level that it's at. So got to give ChatGPT some slack for like missing out on providing that file once or twice. Okay, and just noted the behavior here. So I asked it to generate code. It didn't analyze or create any new code, and it gave me a file that had nothing in it. So this was literally blank. So I'm going to say that file was blank, rewrite all the code, generate it to me per my last instructions in our last conversation. So I'm just clarifying, like, give me what we talked about last. And this is where I think that, you can't really say that some of these language models, it's like we're not at a superhuman level, right? Like when they forget little things like this, like a human would not forget a thing like this. So this is something to remember with AI. You still have to know where you're going. You still have to drive. You still have to tell it, and it's just in a box for you to control, and that's basically the end of the story there for now, anyways. All right, so I've already got dictate on, so let's check out how this works. So first thing, it's not responsive. So even with the pie chart, it does need to be responsive. I'm going to modify this, and what I do want to happen is I want the pie chart to be responsive to, okay, so it is responsive to that. That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's say I take down payment, adjust it, I turn the APR down, that'll shrink that. Okay, cool, very neat. So really the only thing we're looking at now is really the sizing. Okay, so we got the house, modify the home price, turn this up and down, and then we increase the savings target. So we say we want to save a little bit more, which really, like I said, this is not very direct. Okay, so then savings would be this chunk. Okay, so we're good. So all we really need to have it do is a style. Oh, it even has the tax modification. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's have it do the resize of everything, regenerate the HTML file so that we can download it, and that's all we really need. Woo! All right, so we're going. At this point in time with enough feedback, right, this is where you generally find that you're starting to get some lift off and you're really starting to head toward that vision of what you were thinking of initially. So I'll let you know when that comes back. Okay, so I already started playing with the new version a little bit. The adjuster is really good. The framing, the responsiveness, everything looks like it is pretty good. It has a leftover section, so it has housing, vehicle, savings, federal taxes estimate, and then leftover. So just put in an arbitrary number here. If you change this, it will move. Okay, has a solve income and it has the use my income. So if you take APR, let's say 8.15, take 46,000. Let me take gross, and then you add those up. This is cool. What I want to do is I want to have savings be a much smaller item here, and I'm going to dictate this. I want to have the savings block be much smaller, and then I want to put in cost of living. So I want to start out with an estimate. I think we should have a baseline estimate of what probably, typical cost of living, factoring in a couple of different things, kind of start there, and have savings and cost of living, additional costs, be put there, right? And then I want it to be a little bit more clear in articulating, hey, when on the solve income mode, it needs to be, you need to make this much. Income required is pretty straightforward. However, it could be a little better. And then also I think we could pop the styling a little bit more. I think it could be a little less basic. I was also thinking a light theme would be really nice. So this dark theme is cool, but maybe we go with a light theme. So you see I'm throwing a couple significant changes at it. But from here on out, I'm always going to remind it, make sure that you absolutely always provide these outputs in that HTML file. Okay. And so one thing is I don't think it caught that dictation there, so I'll go do it real quick and come back. Okay, so I can already tell you right off the bat, one of the things it did with a major styling change is it went and overwrote basically all the logic we had. So that is no good, so we're going to have to instruct it to not do that, and we're going to have to say, hey, even though you went and made the styling change, we want all the previous functionality with the styling change. However, if the styling change is only going to be the light theme, but it's not really going to look like much better than this, then we don't want it. So this doesn't really look like premium styling. So you can just revert if you can't accomplish this. One thing I will warn about is that you will have a crash out phase when you do a major redesign. So that's why I said, you need to start your initial premise out strong, so that way you really know what the end state will be, because you kind of have one linear shot to get down. When you tell it you need to use concepts from a previous thing, it will sometimes do it. It will carry some of it over, but largely you need to tell it that it needs to consider everything. You need to consider all the code that you've previously written, take all that context, bring it all in, and then all of that together, that app that we previously have made, that's the level that I want this to be. So if you don't have as much functionality, and if you think it's going nowhere, eventually you're going to land here. So I hid a couple prompts just to show you the end state. So we have the 4-quadrant income planner, housing, vehicle, savings, cost of living, and it's all working as far as I can tell, right? So the overall slider here, if you move that, you change anything, the APR, the down payment. For solve for income, this is working exactly like I thought. It has this calculation that modifies a tax estimate based off of how you're filing. If you do married filing jointly, you get a little bit of a discount there, and everything shows when you hover in the pie chart how all of that is broken down. Very nice, very much the way that I want it. All right, if you use income, so say 200,000, okay. Right here with these terms, got the leftover looking pretty good. Oh, 20,000 a year. Oh, 200,000, 20,000 a year. That's what I meant to do. Leftover 8,000 a month. There we go. Left out a zero. Perfect. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So this is all vibe coded with ChatGPT-5. Overall time invested about 45 minutes to get to this. This is a really cool app. It's all in one file, so it's super lightweight. We could take this a bunch of different places. I believe that you could go much further to maybe have a mobile responsive mode, a couple different things, then maybe even have some estimations maybe behind the scenes for different common jobs or something like that. Really, really awesome. If you watched this long, thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.